I love games with deep, complex narratives that make you question what's going on, that delve into generally interesting, lore-rich character backstories. What I don't love is hours worth of the protagonist claiming, "I'm the good guy, so everything I do is good," and the villain or villains being cartoon characters out of a Scooby-Doo episode. Hey, my name is Stix and welcome to the next episode of the worst gacha of all time, a video series where we attempt to find the worst gacha of all time. Today, we're taking a look at Outerplane. Outerplane is a 3D RPG that has you isekai'd into a fantasy world against your will, as you're tasked with saving it from destruction. Now let's jump in. Outerplane starts out with a really long download. I'd already downloaded the game earlier in the day, I'd updated it twice, but before beginning it hit me with a third 5.7 gigabyte update. While it did take quite a while to complete, I was at least given the opportunity to look at this very welcoming, very kind knight. She stretches her arm out to you to welcome you into the world in her affectionate arms. I mean, just look at the scene. She's so thankful for what you were doing for her, for what you were giving up for her, displaying this loving, nurturing, caring, affectionate, and what feels a little bit like a romantic, wait, what is that? Dude, she stabbed me? Dude, she stabbed me? Man down. I have been penetrated without my consent. I am not at all okay with this. Yeah, you, girl. Other blonde, yeah, you get her. Okay, that is admittedly the entire intro to the game, which was a roller coaster of emotions. After the introductory cutscene, we meet Paimon. This is our walking, talking Wikipedia of the world. She teaches us what chapters are, what missions are. She knows where we're located at all times, so she also functions as like a hot GPS. Then we're thrown into our very first major battle. At this point in the game, battles are very simple. You click one of several skills towards the bottom of the screen and your character leaps horizontally to use it. The main character is a tank rather than a DPS, which means that I'm going to immediately replace him whenever I get the opportunity to, because a good tank is integral to your success as a player, and the main character is never the most powerful unit. After several battles, you obtain your first character, Lisha. I had no doubt in my mind that she was also going to be relatively useless, so I replaced her as soon as I gained the ability to roll for characters, which was approximately a half hour after beginning the game. After seeing some of the characters I could obtain, my god was I excited. Sadly, I never really got exactly what I was after, but I feel as though I ended up with a pretty decent squad overall. And now that I think about it, when do we ever end up with the characters that we're actively seeking? The basis of the game is very simple. You're teleported from your world into this one, and after being betrayed, you're saved by Ava. The narrative is pretty shallow and at times feels incredibly convoluted. There is an exorbitant amount of text to read through between each and every single mission. I love deep, lore-rich narratives, but only when it serves a purpose. Padding a story unnecessarily isn't what I deem serving a good purpose. There are numerous chapters, with every chapter having a set number of missions. Missions are a simple battle where you either engage a couple waves of enemies or a couple waves of enemies followed by a much more powerful boss. Before we discuss Outerplane any further, allow me to take a moment here to thank my incredible patrons over on Patreon. Your guys' support is why I can make videos like this every single month, and I deeply appreciate you all being there for me. After playing for 2 weeks, combat never really got more difficult or complex. You deploy several heroes, each with their own respective class archetype. Tank, DPS, support. They run horizontally between screens to engage waves of enemies, jumping back and forth, utilizing abilities at your beckoning. Later on in the game, you unlock auto combat, which was a refreshing change of pace for me because honestly, the combat got repetitious very quickly. I don't mind auto combat in gacha games. I also don't mind turn-based combat. But when the game is a simple combat style with very little depth, the gameplay quickly becomes repetitious and I begin losing interest, which is where auto combat here comes in handy. It allows me to do something else while allowing the game to play for me, which is largely in part what I did in Outerplane, also because I really wasn't at all attached to the narrative. Now, there is a little bit more to the combat, such as the skill chain feature that allows you to chain every character's abilities together into a single unison attack, but that's largely it. In 6 chapters, almost 100 missions, and dozens of hours, it never really got any more complex than that. Don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean the combat in Outerplane is bad. Quite the contrary, it's perfectly average. And as someone that's half Asian, half Russian, I'm okay being average. After a little while playing, I unlocked gear and skills. At the time of unlocking, gear was very difficult to farm, so I had to equip common gear, what little I had anyway, on my characters, in an effort to increase their survivability and their damage. As I'd quickly learn, the game gets progressively more difficult at a rapid rate that I didn't expect. You can have friends in game. I unlocked a friend feature that told me that was the case at least. Unfortunately, I never seem to make any. Do people just not like me? Am I unlikable? Is it because I'm flaccid? Yeah, it's because I'm flaccid, right? People just can't deal with the flaccidity of flaccid Stix. Holy crap, that right there, that guy, yeah, he's your typical hentai protagonist. I love playing gacha games on my PC. I genuinely think that they're better played on PC, where you possess a larger sense of what's going on, but not all games run well on emulators. Case in point, this was an issue that I repeatedly ran into with LD Player. When are gacha games going to release cross-platform onto PC as well, just by default? After a couple of hours, I think this was day 2 or 3, I obtained my first set of epic quality gear as a login reward. To my dismay, the weapon and accessory were for healers. I also had a grand total of 85 recruitment tickets, so you best bet I took advantage of pulling vigorously. I pulled harder than I've ever pulled before. My arm got sore from pulling as much as I did. But after rigorous pulling, I obtained Ame from the Limited Manor and immediately was presented with limited time pack that costs $40. That would allow me to upgrade her. I'm sure this was no doubt a very generous offer, and the devs would struggle to sleep at night knowing they're not going to be able to feed their families after sacrificing so much in this bundle. Nevertheless, I had to pass. If the main story isn't enough for you, as you continue, you'll unlock character side stories. These stories reward you with hero pieces, XP, and gold. This will aid you in upgrading your characters further. At roughly the same time, you unlock challenge modes that'll provide you a lot of resources that you're going to desperately need, and always be in short supply of. Oh, well, that's a nice loading screen. One thing I really enjoyed about Outerplane, and this is I get it, a weird thing to compliment and single out, I know, but was its lobby. I could place down several waifus, adjust their size, their positioning. Most games allow for the placement of a single character, but no, not this one. This one lets you place down several. Continuing with the story a little more, we meet Rona, who's admittedly kind of messed up, and I feel myself a little bit attracted to. Oh god, I have a weird type. At a certain point, I think for me it was around chapter 4 or chapter 5, the game becomes significantly more difficult. Getting maximum ratings for stages becomes increasingly rare, so you're required to make sufficient alterations either to your team composition or to your team's stats. To begin with, you can level your characters. That's the easiest way of obtaining a statistical advantage over your enemies. You farm and upgrade your base gear, your weapons, accessories, and armor. You farm special gear and can equip gems onto them. You increase the level of your skills, you upgrade via elemental stones, you transcend using dupes from Gacha. Some of these are easier than others and result in a larger power boost, but at the end of the day, you should be making use of every single thing you can. The game is very heavily gated behind increasing your power level. A couple days in, I unlocked the Skyward Tower, which functions primarily as the endless tower with ever-growing powerful monsters present in every single game. Because for whatever reason, gacha devs seem to think that that's the single game mode we all love above all others. You know what? She's kinda cute and reminds me very strongly of a character from Madoka Magica. One thing I quickly learned was that Outerplane made use of skip tickets. This is something I'm not at all fond of. I think this is a horrible mechanic and should never be featured in any gacha game ever. I like how Blue Archive and Counter Side handle replayable stages. Once you've completed them, you can rerun them at the cost of stamina only. Outerplane allows you to immediately rerun them until you run out of skip tickets. You can earn skip tickets in game, but those are very limited. To make full use of replaying stages and burning through your stamina, you'll need to let the battles autoplay for you or spend real money. This is disgustingly greedy, and I guarantee you is part of the reason the game is as financially desolate as it is. One area I will give Outerplane credit is that they're very generous when it comes to new players and obtaining new characters. I got what seemed like the potential for hundreds of pulls over a 2-week period. This allowed me to fill out a large number of characters I was missing, but also slowly upgrade characters I was using. Also, I apologize for the technical difficulties right here. My mouse is frozen and I can't close the window. Oh, there we go. After having played for what seemed to be an entire week, I realized my graphics weren't on maximum settings, which made me feel like an idiot. Smoothing out the edges makes a very noticeable, significant difference when increased to high. While I did compliment the combat earlier to an extent by saying that it wasn't bad, I do think there needs to be a feature to disable ability animations. Having played as much as I did to obtain footage for this video, rewatching the same scenes repetitiously not only got boring real fast, but also dragged out the fights and delayed my progress by a substantial margin. At least I couldn't find a setting to disable animations. I guess maybe I was missing something. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm mistaken. Looks like we defeated the monsters in the vicinity. That's the entire game summarized in a single sentence. Another game mode I actually did enjoy was the Archdemon's Ruins, where you deploy your units, you manually control them as you explore a single instanced area, obtain treasure chests, and engage monsters in combat. I think the game really could have benefited from having this be a more prominent feature than it is, because it's actually kind of fun. As you navigate the world, you gain access to buffs that alter your run in various ways, meaning repeated attempts will have different outcomes. Oh, I forgot to mention outfits, didn't I? Crap. I can't believe I missed out on one of the best parts of the game. The outfits look crazy and really emphasize certain characters' personalities, their assets. The additional outfits actually really do look significantly better than the base outfits, and that is Outerplane. Honestly, the combat wasn't bad, special effects were pretty decent, but the repetitious animations really drew out the combat much longer than was necessary. The story was horribly convoluted and could have definitely improved on structuring. There was at least 85% too much text present. Upgrading your characters required a little bit too much in terms of resources, but thankfully you were given hundreds of character pulls to make up for how bad upgrading felt. Characters looked pretty good, but unfortunately were about as dull and stiff as my name sounds. There was little personality, little development, everything felt slow, tedious, and drawn out. Not at all something that I'd enjoy long term. Outerplane isn't a bad game, it's just not a good one. Now, if Outerplane isn't a gacha game you're at all interested in, no problem, I have you covered with 2 different videos on screen right now.